Welcome to Fix It Home Improvement, covering projects that every homeowner should know and great products for home and garden.
Hi, I'm JC, and this is where we share weekly home improvement tips. I'm here with my co-host, Cindy.
Hello, JC.
Hi, Cindy. Today we're going to be talking about spray paint. We'd like to thank Purple Butterfly for liking and giving us a nice review on Amazon for our book, Home Improvement Solutions, What Every Homeowner Should Know. In 1927, they developed the first aerosol spray can. And then in World War II, they created a spray to kill mosquitoes because of malaria.
Who's they?
The U.S. government, the U.S. Research Program for Mosquito Control in 1943. In 1949, a paint company owned by Ed Seymour, he developed the first actual spray paint, and they started manufacturing it in Chicago. And the early cans were all filled with this paint and propellant, so they used chlorofluorocarbons, which were really good for spraying paint, but really bad for the ozone, so they banned that in 1978.
Bummer.
And now they use hydrofluorocarbons, which are less risky to the environment. Mm-hmm. Inside these spray cans, they have either a small metal, glass, or plastic ball that helps mix the propellant and the spray paint. So it all.
Is that what makes the noise?
Yeah, and you really got to shake it like crazy. In fact, one tip, you shake it till you think you mixed it pretty well, and then shake it twice as long, is what most of the pros recommend. And then that hole, you ever see, so when you pop on the top of a spray can, there's that tiny hole in it. Mm-hmm. So they found out when they were shipping, so they would put the cans together, pop on the top without the hole, and they found that the air expansion, when they moved to different parts of the country, at different elevations, all the tops would pop off. So I said, why don't we put a hole in it? For a lot of projects around the house, spray paint's going to give you the best finish. So rather than paintbrushes or roller covers, for bikes, like metal mailboxes, metal handrails going up to your house, sometimes if you have metal trim, it really does a nice professional job. Mm-hmm. For most of these projects, when possible, I would always spray outside because the fumes can really be toxic. When you're outside, most pros recommend you wear a particulate filter of R95 or higher.
So this looks like a regular dust mask?
Right. It's just rated so it stops a lot of these particles from you breathing them in. When you're inside, you always want to wear a respirator with one of the disposable or two of the disposable cartridges. They have activated carbon in there. Mm-hmm. What's wild is the typical warning on a spray paint can says repeated or prolonged exposure to these chemicals without the use of a respirator can cause permanent brain and lung damage.
Wonder if the graffiti people know that.
Yeah. For your projects, I'd get drop cloths, newspapers, some painter's tape so that we can protect all the area that we're around what we're spraying.
Right.
Because, they call it overspray. That's that excess paint that's going past the object that you're spraying.
I always fine mist that ends up everywhere.
Right. I would always wear gloves. For small objects, you can put them, let's say we're doing some crafts. If you have a nice big cardboard box, you can put it inside that. You're kind of creating your own spray booth. And then also, once that object is wet, it kind of keeps dust from landing on it. Mm-hmm. For the best finish and the longest life, you want to prep your surface, clean it really well, and then use a primer. For uneven or rough surfaces, you're going to want to sand it very thoroughly. And then most manufacturers say just use household detergent or mineral spirits on wood or metal before you spray paint it. You're going to want to make sure the surface is completely dry. You're going to wipe it down with a clean rag so that there's no particles on it. If this is your first time using spray paint, I would definitely practice. So you can grab some cardboard or some wood and just practice, because if you get too close, you accumulate too much paint and it starts to sag. You get runs. If you're too far away, you get this powdery effect. It's almost like it feels rough when you're done with it, and it doesn't have a really nice smooth look to the paint. Mm-hmm. It's pretty wild. I worked for a spray paint company for a couple of years, and we mixed our own...
So what, you were a tagger?
I tagged some really nice metal cabinets and refrigerators, and so we worked in a lot of these high rises downtown in Chicago where they had these beautiful metal cabinets, but they're 30, 40 year old. The finish started looking bad. They had scratches, so we would sand them all smooth, tape off every surface. We had plastic on the walls, and we would create this plastic spray booth. We had these spring-loaded poles. And then we'd have this great big fan that we put on the end of it, cut a slit in our plastic wall, and then we created this plastic tube that went out the window. So we cut some holes so air could come in. I mean, just an elaborate thing. It was actually very interesting, a lot of fun. But when I first started, the owner had me work for quite a few days just on scrap pieces of wood and cardboard to get that feel for how close or how far to be. And then you really start to get a groove. It's funny how just a little bit of turning your wrist too makes a big difference. So you really want to keep the front of that spray can, if we're using a spray can, even and parallel with the surface. You never want to twist your hand because then you get a lighter spray and a heavier spray. So I would grab a piece of scrap and practice a little bit. You also want to shake the can thoroughly, like we said. Most manufacturers recommend 2 full minutes of shaking.
Wow.
Amazing, huh?
What do you think? Most people do it like 10 times?
Yeah, really, probably, yeah. You want to hold.
That seems like a lot of shaking.
Yeah, but 2 full minutes is a long time. You're going to get used to using both hands when you're doing that. You want to hold the can about 12 inches from the surface, but depending on the paint and the style of the tip, you're going to have to practice a little bit, and you want to keep moving. If you're too close or stay too long in one place, you're definitely going to get sagging. You want 2 thin coats in most cases for your paint and your primer. When you're starting to spray your object, you want to actually start depressing the tip before the object and work into it, and then keep spraying just past it, because you don't want to depress the tip right on the edge, because sometimes you get some splattering, and then you want it even. So you're actually going to start spraying just before the object, keep spraying just past it, and then you want to overlap by about 1/3 on each pass, and you're going to get a very nice finish. Once you get your first coat on, you want it to completely dry before the next coat. And then read the label. There's a lot of different drying times. 10 to 15 minutes is probably average. And then if you have very intricate shapes or difficult to spray pieces, what you can do, and this is what we did with a lot of our projects, is we would take masking tape and then, we used a special spray paint paper, but you can use newspaper and tape off the other parts of the object. You can spray what's hard to spray, let it dry, pull your tape and paper off, and once it's completely dry, then cover that other piece. Because sometimes when 2 sides or 2 parts of an object meet and you try to spray that, it gets so thick that then you get sags. For most paint, you're going to want 2 thin top coats. But
Is this in addition to primer?
Yes, so you'd put your primer on and then 2 thin top coats of the paint. But depending on the manufacturer, I would always read the label. Some exterior paints, they want you to add more coats so it's more durable. And then keep shaking it every couple of minutes while you're painting to keep it mixed, and then you want that color to be...
So do you have to mix it for 2 minutes again?
No. Once after the initial brutal 2 minutes, then you can just shake it occasionally every couple minutes while you're doing it. The ideal temperature for spray paint is 50 to 90 degrees. They want the humidity below 85%. When you finish painting, so let's say you did your primer and you're done, you're going to turn your paint can upside down and you're going to depress it and you're going to spray it for about 5 to 10 seconds until it's just clear. So you see the paint for a few seconds, and then the minute it goes clear, you let go, and that's going to keep the tip clean.
So if you don't do this, you're ruining the tip, right?
Yeah, it's going to get hard as a rock, and then you can't use the tip.
Because this was a problem in the hardware stores all the time. These idiots would stand there in the spray paint aisle and spray the shelves with spray paint.
It was amazing. Well, I can't believe people would come into the store
and just ruin...
Well, all the caps are the color.
Right.
And we would have big...
The exact color.
We would have signs.
Yeah.
The cap is the color. Please do not spray our shelves and other cans.
Right.
It was wild. So they would spray... And then the amount of cans that came back was pretty shocking. It's like, hey, it won't spray, and this is a can that somebody sprayed.
Right.
And it's like, okay, I don't like this color.
That's on the cap.
Right. So it will clog if you don't clean it out by turning it upside down. But if you forgot, or let's say you didn't clean it out thoroughly, you can also use a little bit of lacquer thinner in most cases to clean the tip.
Why don't we talk about different materials you could use spray paint on?
Okay, so for wood, you want to, for all these projects, I would put down a drop cloth, I'd have newspapers and masking tape, I'd have gloves. For wood furniture, I would remove all the hardware. Anything that you can take apart, anything that can be separated, I would, just to make it easier to spray. Anything rough, you want to sand and then wipe down everything so there's no dust. You can use a tack rag, which is just a sticky rag that picks up tiny particles. You can blow them off with compressed air. And then you want to clean the wood. Most refinishers are using a solvent like mineral spirits rather than water, because water can soak in and kind of stay there. If it's not totally dry, it can lift off the paint. So we want to make sure it's totally dry. And also water can raise the nap on some wood.
Right.
And then use a primer designed for wood and one that's compatible with your top coat. For a wood primer, what it's doing is sealing all of the pores and giving you just a nice uniform surface so that paint gets the best finish.
What about metal?
So you want to make sure it's free of rust and oils. Any peeling paint, we want to sand it smooth so that there's a nice transition between the metal and the paint. You want that feathered. And then you're going to clean it with a solvent like mineral spirits. And you don't want to touch any of these surfaces with your bare hands because you'll get the oil on the surface. And if you have any rust, or if you've sanded it really well and there might be some tiny little pinholes of rust, you want to use a primer specifically for rusty metal. It's either going to say rusty metal or rust fix or rust converting, and that actually bonds with any tiny pieces of rust, and it makes it a paintable surface.
Interesting.
If you have just a bare metal with no rust, then you're just looking for a metal primer. And some of these actually take a little longer to cure, so make sure you read the label. Some I've seen take 30 to 40 minutes before they cure and before you can put your top coat on.
How about plastic?
So if you're using just a regular spray paint and you want to spray something plastic, you always want to make sure that you prime it before you use your spray paint. But they've got some really cool spray paints that are designed to bond and fuse with plastic.
No way.
So you don't use a primer. So the chemicals actually interact with the plastic and fuse themselves to it. Krylon, that's Krylon, fusion paint is specifically designed for plastic. No primer. And then Rust-Oleum has a plastic spray paint.
Aren't you going to spell that?
So Rust-Oleum. And it's specifically designed for outside projects like plastic mailboxes and lawn chairs. So just very interesting, the science behind these. So make sure you read the label, because some you want to use a primer and some you don't want to use a primer because it's designed to bond with it.
What kind of prep do you do?
So the same, very similar, look at your label, because some manufacturers want you to use a paint thinner and not touch it. You know, you don't want to get any oils from your hand on this. And then there's a couple of the spray paints for plastic where they want you to use a liquid detergent and then thoroughly rinse it and allow it to dry before you use it.
Can you use a spray paint over an already painted surface?
So if you're going over paint, you want to make sure that it's dull. You don't want it shiny, so you're going to want to either sand it.
So the answer is yes?
Yes, we can paint over paint. So if there's any imperfection or it's rough, we want to use sandpaper and sand it down. Again, we want the surface to be dull. Most manufacturers don't recommend using a mineral spirits or any type of solvent on paint, because some paints you can actually weaken it and then it can cause peeling. So this is the one place where you just use a liquid detergent, clean it very thoroughly, make sure that the surface is dull, whether you have to sand it or just clean it well. Then you're going to prime it, and then you're going to use a spray paint on it. So you want to go over some specialty spray paints?
All right.
They have frosted glass paint. So if you have like so a lot of times when we were remodeling these old 80-year-old homes, we would have these bathrooms where it was just glass in the bathroom.
Right.
So we took this frosted...
So like the shower door?
Well, no, you're like the door to next door. So a lot of these houses that we bought, I mean, you were 2 feet away from the house next door to you. So your bathroom, you could see right into the neighbor's bathroom.
Why would they do that?
They get a lot of houses on that block, man.
Guess.
Builders making money. So we took this frosted glass paint and we sprayed the glass, and then it looks like frosted glass. So it's really cool. You can't see through it. So that's good for bathroom windows. I like that for windows around a door. If you want, if you have the side lights on your, around your front door,
right,
you can spray it on that. There's some paints that work on wicker, ceramic, even fabric. So like my mom, when she was doing all these antiques, she had a spray paint she used on these lampshades. So she would take these old, ugly looking lampshades and spray them with the spray. and it did a really nice job. And then Krylon has this spray. It's called Digital Photo and Paper Protectant. And so if you have these digital photos or, a lot of different things, it's going to protect them against sunlight, against moisture, and they say that it can double the life of your pictures.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that's kind of cool. They have chalkboard paint.
This is cool.
So you can spray a piece of wood or spray your wall, tape it off and spray your wall, and you can create a chalkboard surface.
Right, or if you have kids, you could make a table into a chalkboard surface.
Yeah, very cool. There's high temperature paint or high heat spray paint, and this resists temperatures up to 1200 degrees Fahrenheit. So fantastic for your grill lids, wood-burning stoves. You don't want to put it on the inside of the lid or the inside of a fireplace, but just on the outside surfaces. Right. It really makes something look nice. You can get Appliance Epoxy spray paint.
Have you ever used this?
No, we always used the touch-up. So we used the little bottles where it had a little brush inside and used it for like all of our houses, and it really did a nice job. But they've got a spray version. They say that you don't need a primer on most of these, and just great for refrigerators, washing machines, dryers. Like for a dishwasher. Yeah, the face of that. You can tape it all off.
This is going back when my parents got a new stove and they got a new refrigerator, but they did not get a new dishwasher at the time. So, and it was that lovely avocado green.
Yeah, sure.
So the new stove and refrigerator were almond colored.
Okay.
So I got
another
to
modern
use.
color.
I was nominated to use the Appliance Epoxy.
How'd it work?
It was good. Yeah, it turned out nice.
What's another cool thing is Plastic Dip makes a rubber spray that you can spray onto stuff. So if you have tools and the handles are like coming off, so your grip is bad, you can take this spray and it's rubberized, and once you spray it on, it dries to this wonderful rubbery finish, and it's good from -30 to 200 degrees Fahrenheit.
How does that have anything to do with spray paint?
It's cool.
Why are we talking about it now?
So back to spray paints. Most of the Krylon and Rust-Oleum spray cans are recyclable. And then look at the labels. Many of them you can recycle. You're going to want to empty the can, so spray out all of the paint, separate the cap from the can, and if they don't have a recycling place by you, we've talked about earth911.com. So it's EARTH, then the numbers 911.com. You put in your zip code, what the product is that you want to recycle, and they'll give you the closest place. If you get any sags or drips while you're spraying, you need to let it dry completely, and then you can sand it smooth and then just reprime it and repaint it.
What are some top-rated companies?
So probably the easiest to find and top-rated is Krylon and Rust-Oleum. And then for primer, Kilz is rated one of the highest, and that's KILZ. If you're looking for graffiti paint, Monster Colors in the UK are considered the best, and they have all types of different tips, so different patterns, spray patterns, and they have a non-drip formula.
Nice.
In Germany, Molotow, MOLOTOW, is considered the best graffiti paint. In China, Ironlak, IRONLAK, and in Italy, Cobra, KOBRA. Although graffiti is a crime in most cities.
No kidding.
But it's wild. In ancient Greece, all the historians really study the graffiti. So ancient Rome, inside the catacombs, Pompeii, ancient Greece, they're really doing a lot of research on this because they use this to understand language, the literacy rates, and pronunciation of stuff from graffiti. Funny, huh?
Interesting. I didn't think you'd be able to work in ancient Rome or Greece.
Nice, huh? Here's a couple things found on walls. Marcus loves Spendusa.
That's nice.
And small problems get large if you ignore it.
Ain't that the truth?
During World War II, one of the popular graffitis all over was Kilroy was here. So this wasn't what they think is this was an inspector for tanks and warships, and he scribbled Kilroy was here on everything he inspected. And so they started making that little cartoon where it's like the guy looking over a wall. You can see his hands. He has this big nose that's hanging over it, so he's peeking over a wall.
You have some very nice drawings here.
Yeah, I did my own graffiti on my notes. But Hitler actually issued an order to try to find Kilroy because all the Nazis were saying, hey man, we see this Kilroy was here everywhere.
Nice. Do you have anything else to add besides more graffiti?
I would say clean and prep your surface, very important. Always use a primer unless you're using something like a specialty paint like the plastic paints. Use 2 thin coats minimum. Wear a dust mask. Make sure you're shaking it thoroughly beforehand.
2 minutes.
And then during. I would always make sure that I'm keeping the spray can and the tip very parallel with the surface. We're not moving our wrist. Mm-hmm. We want it very uniform. When you're done, turn the can upside down, spray it for a few seconds till it's clear, and cover everything. Use some drop cloths, some painter's tape, and newspaper so you don't get the overspray all over.
Let's wrap this up.
You can get our book, Home Improvement Solutions, What Every Homeowner Should Know, on Amazon.
If you enjoyed it, leave us a 5-star review.
You can subscribe to our podcast on iTunes or Stitcher.
If you enjoyed it, please leave us a review.
Check out our home improvement videos on our YouTube channel, Fix It Home Improvement.
And you can subscribe to that as well.
If you'd like to email us, you can email us at fixitpodcast@gmail.com.
Thank you for listening.
Talk to you next week.